this lesson, we will explore a forms unit. I'm going to dive immediately into this lesson with a new application. Here we have a Delphi application, but I have not saved the project and unit files yet. As you can see, the project is still called Project 1. The form also has its default name, which is Form 1. If we go and look at the code editor window, we see that the unit is called Unit 1. You can see the unit's name in the tab at the top of the code editor, and it is also defined in the first line of the code. I will now go back to the form and change a few properties. First, I change the caption of the form to the words Exploring Form Unit. Then I change the form's name to FRM Explore Form Unit. After making these changes, I want to save the application. I click on the Save All button in the speed bar. First, I get a dialog window to enable me to save the unit file. The unit that I want to save here is the forms unit that we just looked at. I want to save this file in the folder structure that I created before. So, I will go ahead to my desktop to open the folder called Delphi Schools Video Projects. In this folder, I create a new folder called Exploring Form Unit. I'm going to save the unit file in this folder. Because the unit belongs to the form, I name it FRM Explore Form Unit _U. After I click on the Save button, I get another dialog window to save the project file. Here I name the project file Explore Form Unit _P. Now let's have a closer look at the unit again. Here you can see that the forms unit is now called FRM Explore Form Unit _U. So now we know that the code that we write in the code editor is contained in a unit that belongs to the current form. As you can see here, we haven't written a single line of code yet, but the unit already contains several lines of code. These code statements are generated by Delphi itself, and it should not be deleted if you don't know what you are doing. This unit has two major sections. The first section is the interface section. This section is where Delphi makes all the declarations that defines how the form will look and which other resources it will use. We will have a closer look at the contents of the interface section in a moment. The second major section is the implementation section. This section is where the logic for the form will be implemented. I will also come back to this section in a moment. Before we look at the details of these two sections, I'm going to add a button on the form. I will change the caption of the button to Show Message. And then I will change the dimensions of the form to enable us to see the code in the background. Here in the unit you can see a new line of code. After I added a new button on the form, Delphi added a new statement to include the button as part of the unit. I will now also place a bit button on the form. Again, Delphi adds a new statement to include the bit button as part of the forms unit. I will then change the kind property of the bit button to BK Close. I select the Show Message button and then I change its name to BTN Show Message. Now look at this. After I change the name of the button in the Object Inspector, Delphi also changes the declaration in the forms unit. Now I also change the name of the bit button to BMB Close. And Delphi also changes the declaration in the unit. Next, I want to write code that must show a message when I click on the button. To create an event handler for the on-click event of BTN Show Message, I double-click on the button. Delphi generates an event handler called BTN Show Message _click. And between the begin and end statements, I write code to show the message dialog that reads, "You are exploring the forms unit file." To make sure that Delphi is happy with this, I run the application and then I click on the button to show the message. Okay, I didn't get any errors, so I close the message dialog and the form to return back to design time. Now I will go back to the forms unit to see how it looks now. Here, under the declarations of the button and the bit button, Delphi added another statement. This statement corresponds with the event handler that I just created for the on-click event of BTN Show Message. Okay, now let's go back to the two main sections of the form's unit. Let's first look at the interface section again. In the interface section, we have a subsection that starts with the user statement. Under the user statement, we have the names of a few predefined units. The Delphi creators developed many units with predefined attributes and behaviors that are needed by the form. These units are referenced in the form's unit under the user statement to enable the form to take advantage of the predefined functionality provided by Delphi. An example of this is the predefined unit called dialogues. This unit was created by the Delphi creators to enable us to show our own dialog windows, like the message dialogues that we display when we want to show messages to the users. The next part of the interface section is the type section. In this part, we find all the statements that defines the form, its attributes and its behaviors. In the previous lesson, you learned that the component is created from a plan. This plan is called a class. There, I used the tEdit class to explain how an edit object is instantiated from a tEdit. A form is also instantiated from a class. This class is defined when you create a new application that contains a form. The name of the class will depend on the name that you assign to your form. In this case, I named the form FRM Explore Form Unit. So Delphi adds a capital T to the front of the name to make the class name T FRM Explore Form Unit. This newly created class is based on another class that the Delphi creators developed, called tForm. Under the class declaration, we have the three statements that Delphi declared when I placed components on the form and when I created a new event handler for the onClick event of the button. In the previous video, you learned that the class contains attributes and behaviors. The attributes defines how a class looks, and behaviors determines which actions a class can perform. These two statements represents the form class's attributes. Components that you add to a form contribute to the look and feel of your form. So, it means that they are the form's attributes. This statement represents the form class's behavior. In other words, the actions that can be performed by this form. We also have this private and public sections in the class. You will learn more about this section in a later lesson. The last part of the interface section is the Var section. This is where you can declare class level variables. You will learn more about variables in a future lesson. In the previous lesson, you learned that we create objects from classes. The statement that I indicate there on the screen declares the class or the blueprint of the form. Here, we create an instance called FRM Explore Form Unit from the class or blueprint called tFRM Explore Form Unit that we declared in the above statement. As you can see, the interface section declares the class, its attributes, its behaviors, and it instantiates the form object from the class. Now, let's look at the second main section. It is this part that starts with the implementation statement. In this section, we implement the logic for the form's attributes and behaviors. Here you can see that the event handler that we created earlier implements the logic for the procedure declaration that we defined in the interface section. And finally, the last end statement indicates to the compiler where everything ends. As you can see in this unit, Delphi does a lot of the code for you. I want to emphasize again, don't delete any of the code that is automatically created by Delphi if you don't know what you are doing. However, sometimes it is necessary to remove statements and blocks of code that you do not need anymore. If that is the case, you must know what must be deleted. Let me demonstrate that. Let's assume that I do not need this event handler anymore and I want to delete it. I select the whole block and press the delete key on my keyboard. If I now go and test the application, Delphi immediately reports an error. The error message reads, unsatisfied forward or external declaration, tFRM Explore Form Unit.btn show message click. This message means that my unit has a declaration that is not implemented. That is because I deleted the implementation logic for this declaration in the highlighted line. If you must delete an event handler in the implementation section, you must also delete the statement that declares it in the interface section. I will go ahead and also delete the statement that causes the error. Then I run the application again. If you get a message dialog that asks you if the reference must be removed, you can go ahead and click the Yes button. And the application runs without errors now. This concludes lesson 26, and it is also the end of chapter 1.